guys, my name is Seven, and hi guys, my name is Seven. Welcome back to my channel, Seven Layers of Beauty. So today we'll be talking about the murder of Torrance, ms.Whoochie, Cheeves. But before I get into my video, I would like to put my disclaimer out that anything that we will be discussing and talking about in this video is anything that I have just gotten off of the internet and I have compiled into one video about this case. So without further ado, let's jump right in. All right, so on Wednesday, August 26th of 2015, usually everyone is around this time, they're going to lunch, enjoying the weather on a bright sunny day, just enjoying themselves, But in the fastest growing city in the United States, in San Antonio, Texas, at an assisted living facility, there are frantic, worried, and concerned employees and coworkers that's worried about their friend, Torrance Cheeves. And they're worried about him because he hasn't come into work today. Not only has he not coming into work today, he didn't call in to let anyone know that he wouldn't be coming in. He isn't responding back to any of their phone calls or their text messages, and that's a little unlike him. Usually he would call in to let them know that he wouldn't be coming in or that he would be late. And on top of that, they're also a little concerned too because although he's been at this facility and he loved it, he's been here for 20 plus years. Like, he's really about ready to retire, but he chose to stay a little longer because he loved his job. He loved what he did. He loved his patients. He loved his coworkers, his colleagues. He loved that field that he was in. So that's a little, like, I guess, fishy, shall we say. So they're very concerned and they're continuously just trying to call and text and call to no avail. So at this point, what happens is two of his co-workers, Amanda and Larry, they end up going to the supervisor and they let him know, like, hey, what we're going to do is we're going to go to Terrence's house and we're going to check in on him because he isn't responding. So at this point, the supervisor agrees and just says, yes, can you please tell him to call us? Like, he can't be doing that because he's scaring us. So Amanda agrees. Amanda and Larry gets to his house. And at this point, their little bit worries subside, but they still have a little worry in them because they're like, I at least need to see his face. And when I see him, he gonna hear what I got to say. He gonna hear what's on my mind. So as they walk up to the door, Larry, he's knocking, and Amanda, she's calling. But as Amanda is calling, she notices that she can hear his cell phone ringing inside of the house. So now she's like, okay, why isn't he answering the phone? Like, and we're outside. We clearly hear the phone ringing. Like, what's going on? Is he sick? Like, what's going on? He needs to answer. So, at this point, she hangs up, and when she hangs up, she looks to the right of her, and she notices that there is a broken window to the right of her, and she's like, okay, something got to be wrong because I've been here before, and that window was never broken, so something's wrong. So Amanda immediately tells Larry, hey, there's a broken window right here, so what I want to do is I just want to go to the back door and knock on the door to see if he can hear us, and if he's sick, maybe we can get him to the doctor or something. So Larry agrees. So as Amanda is walking on the side of the house, she notices that Torrance's laptop and a hospital nightgown is on the ground. And at this point, Amanda gets scared. So she runs to the front and she tells Larry, please call 911 because something is wrong. His car is in the driveway. His phone is ringing while we're outside. There's a broken window and his belongings are outside on the ground. That's unlike Torrance. So Larry agrees. Larry calls 911 and he tells the dispatchers the same exact thing that has basically been going on. Hey, my friend hasn't come into work today. This is unlike him. He's been here for over 20 plus years. He's never done this before. There's a broken window. His car is in the driveway. His belongings are outside on the ground. But they're still a little confused on if they need emergency services, if they need the non-emergency police. They don't know. So dispatchers just end up sending the police officers over there. So two police officers, they show up, and Amanda and Larry, they tell them the same exact thing that they told the dispatchers. So So the police decide to walk to the back of the house, and they walk to the back of the house. And as he's knocking on the door, he notices that the door just pushes open, which that is a little iffy. Like that's like nobody would just leave their door open. Not only is the door open, the door is actually unlocked. So they're like, okay, we know that it's no forced entry, so he has to be here. Maybe he forgot to lock the door. Maybe he's asleep. Maybe he's sick. So as they're walking throughout the house, they notice that it is blood all over the walls, just all over everywhere. There's blood splatter all over the bathroom, all throughout the house. So as they continue to walk, they just so happen to stumble upon the kitchen. When they stumble up on the kitchen and they turn to the left, they notice that Torrance is laying face down in a puddle of blood with the dining room table turned over on his back. At this point, the police know that they have a crime scene. They don't know if it's a suicide. They don't know if it's a murder yet. So they tell Amanda and Larry to go outside, but to wait on them because they have a couple of questions to ask them before they leave. Amanda and Larry agrees. So as they're assessing the area, with the police, as they're assessing the area, they notice that Torrance has a cut on the back of his neck, and he has, a stab wound on the back of his neck and a stab wound to his neck. So at this point, they know that it's not suicide, so they rule out suicide. And at this point, they go outside and they ask Amanda and Larry, hey, can you give us any information about your friend? And, they proceed to tell him that his name is Torrance Cheeves. He was from Waco, a small city out of Waco, Texas. He chose to move to San Antonio once he became an adult because that the urban community that he lived in didn't agree with his lifestyle. And what she means by lifestyle is Torrance is a black gay man. And back in the 70s, 80s, early 90s, it was frowned upon to be part of the LGBTQ community. And in this urban community that he was a part of, they really wasn't accepting of that. Although most of his family and friends that accepted him and his sexuality, they say Torrance was the life of the party. Everyone loved Torrance. Everywhere he went, everybody just flocked to Torrance, or everybody loved Torrance. And then they proceed to tell him that once he moved here, he began dating, that he does have a boyfriend, but they don't know the boyfriend's name. But they do know that he has one, and he has been dating still. And they begin to tell him how he didn't come into work and how he's never did a no call no show. He hasn't responded to calls, hasn't responded to text messages. And she also tells them that there is a broken window and his car was outside, and that's what made them get a little bit suspicious, along with the belongings on the ground. So at that point, the police go over and he looks at the window and he notices that it was broken. So he notates that and he tells Amanda and Larry, we're going to get back with you. Thank you for the information. At this point, the police decides to start canvassing the neighborhood. And once they start canvassing the neighborhood, there is a neighbor to the left of Torrance that walks up to him and she tells them, hey, I just wanted to let you guys know, don't know if this can help, but last night I thought it was a little suspicious that there was a man walking throughout my backyard, and when I turned my exterior footlights on, he just walked away, but no one ever really walks through my backyard. Not only that, his car was parked in my backyard, in my driveway. So the police was like, well, how did you notice that this man was walking through your backyard? And she says, well, my dog began barking frantically at my back door. So that's how I noticed it. And I wish that I would have known or heard something because I would have called the police at the time. So she began apologizing and everything. So by that time, she leaves, and the police, they continue to canvass the neighborhood. While they're canvassing the neighborhood, there is a security guard, and this security guard is the security guard of a church, like a kind of like across the street, about a block away from Torrance, but it has cameras on all four sides of the building. So the police can actually see all sides, and he's like, hey, don't know what you're looking for, don't know what you're looking at, but what I did was I went and downloaded 2 weeks worth of video surveillance just in case it can help you guys. And if you need anything else, let us know. So the police is thinking at this point, great, awesome. I think we got our break at this point because we have video surveillance, you know. So once they go back to, once they get back to the station, they begin looking at the video surveillance. And while they're looking at the video surveillance, they see that there are three people. There's a driver, there's a man in black, and there's a man in white. And the man in black is the one that's going back and forth in and out of Torrance's house, and he's bringing belongings as well. And then they also see the neighbor that says she turned her light on around 11 o'clock. They see with the exterior floodlight turned on. The man looked at her, continued walking, jumped inside of the car. But the other guy that was in white, he walked around the corner and met them. So at this point, they need more surveillance of the guy in the white. And at this point, what they're trying to do, they're trying to see if they can get a license plate number from this car. But unfortunately, the video is a little grainy, but they are able to make out that this car is a Ford Focus station wagon. So what they do is they go ahead and they turn the information over to the Department of Transportation to see if they can help them. And in the meantime, they began calling Torrance's family and friends, letting them know that their family or friend is now deceased. And when they call the parents of Torrance, the parents of Torrance tell them, unfortunately, they don't really have too much information to give them, but the best bet and the best thing for them to do is to call his best friend, Willis. So Willis began to tell them about his boyfriend. His boyfriend is Wayne. And a little backstory on Wayne. Wayne is a guy that Torrance met at a nightclub downtown where Torrance worked at. And he approached Torrance and he was telling Torrance, like, hey, you did good on stage. And if I don't know if I mentioned this to you guys, and I'm sorry if I did. If I didn't, Torrance is a premier drag queen, is a local celebrity all throughout San Antonio, Texas. So Wayne, he's just admired. He's just astonished at this. He's just astonished at Torrance's performance. So at this nightclub at night, Torrance doesn't go by Torrance. He goes by ms.Whoochie. So Wayne tells him, ms.Whoochie, I loved your performance on stage. I would love to get to know you. You did awesome. You are beautiful. So ms.Whoochie, she's like, well, come over and sit down. Let's talk. And Wayne is like, okay, well, let me buy you a drink. And Torrance is like, okay. So Torrance is like, well, ms.Whoochie, she's like, well, tell me a little about yourself. And Wayne begins to tell her that, hey, I'm just getting out of jail or prison because of some drug charges. And because of that, I am homeless. So because Torrance is loving Wayne's vibe and he was honest, ms.Whoochie decides to tell him, well, hey, I have an empty bedroom at my house. You're more than welcome to stay with me and stay here until you get on your feet. And once Wayne agrees to it, they move in, and ms.Whoochie writes Wayne some reference letters for him to get jobs. Wayne ended up landing a job. And at this point, Wayne and ms.Whoochie, they're doing well. Or Wayne and Torrance, they're doing well in their relationship. But later on down the line, this is when Willis begins to tell the police that about 3 months before the murder, Wayne and Torrance, or ms.Whoochie, they was getting into arguments. It was just trouble in paradise at this point. And the trouble was because Wayne was an avid smoker of marijuana, and although Torrance tried to deal with it because she or he accepted Wayne flaws and all, so she tried to deal with it, but she couldn't take too much of it because it just couldn't get out of her mind that, hey, if I get caught, with you at my house and you're smoking marijuana, I can get in trouble because I work for the state. So I need for you to stop. If you can't stop, unfortunately, you're going to have to leave. So Wayne did try, but he just couldn't do it. So Wayne ended up leaving out of the house. And maybe a week before the murder, Willis begins to tell the police that Wayne decides to pop up to Torrance's house unannounced. And when he walked in, he was met with Torrance and his friends sitting on the couch, having drinks and talking. Wayne was jealous. He was irate. him and Torrance got into an argument, and the argument didn't stem only because, that's his friend on the couch. That's no big deal. It was really because not only is this Torrance's friend, this is also Torrance's ex-boyfriend from way back when. But although Torrance is telling and insisting on their friendship as just a friendship, it's nothing like, like we're trying to get back together. We're just catching up as friends. That's it. That's all. Wayne wasn't having it. Wayne was jealous. Wayne just was not having it. So they got into a really, really, really big argument. But the guy that was there, his name was Shorty. He ended up leaving. He wasn't having it. He didn't want to stay for that. He apologized if he was coming in between their relationship, and Torrance told him he wasn't. And about now, a week later, Torrance is deceased. So the police is like, you know what? We need to talk to Wayne at this point. Like, we have to talk to Wayne. Wayne has to be our suspect because stab wounds, those are very personal wounds. Like, that's something personal, that because it's so close to the to the victim. In order for someone to be able to stab someone, you have to be able to trust someone that much for them to be able to get up on you and stab you. So the police really insisted on in finding Wayne. So they find Wayne and they ask Wayne, hey, can you tell us where you was the night of the 25th? And he tells them, I was at work. I was at work, and he's a little upset and appalled that Torrance is deceased. He insisted on their relationship having, yes, we had ups and downs, but I loved him. I was in love with Torrance. I would never hurt him. I only wanted the best for Torrance. So no, I did not kill him. So the police decides to ask him, well, we were told that you caught Torrance and Shorty inside the house a week ago having drinks, and you blew up. And the police is thinking that he's going to probably deny this, but he didn't. He says, yes, we did get into an argument. Okay, what about it? So the police says, well, are you jealous? Were you jealous of that? He was like, duh, of course I'm jealous. I'm in love with this man. Why wouldn't I be? You trying to tell me you wouldn't be jealous if you walked in on your wife or your husband sitting on the couch with another man or woman? So at this point, the police looks at that like, you know what? He's right. We're going to check his alibi, and we're going to see, if his alibi can check out. At that point, his alibi checks out. When his alibi checks out, the police at this point, they begin to look at Torrance's cell phone records. When they look at his cell phone records, they notice that Torrance was texting an unidentified number. And the number he's texting, he seems to be in love with this person, but this person isn't reciprocating it back. It seems that this other person is only using Torrance for money. So what they do is they decide to put the unidentified number into the database, and it comes back to a Susan Fields. When it comes back to Susan Fields, they try to look up who Susan Fields was, and unfortunately, this is when they find out Susan Fields is not a person, and that this phone is a burner phone. So the only thing that they can do at this point is send the phone off or subpoena and get everything subpoenaed at this point. So at this point, everything pretty much comes to a halt at this point. So the only thing that they can do right now is continue to question family and friends. So as they're questioning family and friends, the Department of Transportation finally calls them back. And this is when they tell them, hey, we have all the information that you need for their Ford Focus. Get your pen and paper out. Are you ready? The police says yes. They get their pen and paper, and this is when it comes out that there are only 8 vehicles in the entire San Antonio, Texas, and that is a Ford Focus station wagon light with the with verified registration. So at this point, the police begin to look at all of the vehicle registrations, and they go to every single house to investigate. To no prevail, they couldn't find anything. They haven't found nothing. So at this point, the police is pretty much like, we're about to give up at this point because we can't find it, but we have to give up on this car. We can't put all our focus inside of this car. But on their way back to the station, they just so happen to look over to their left, and they see a Ford Focus station wagon in the yard. So they park their car in this man's yard. They get out, they knock on the door, and they notice that a middle-aged Hispanic man knocks on the door, and this man is Gabriel Valdez. And he's telling him like, they begin to ask him questions, and Gabriel tells them like, listen, I don't know what you guys are talking about. I just got off of work, but you guys are more than welcome to look inside of my car. So they look inside the car, and they notice that his car is clean. Not only is it clean, that dent is not the dent that they were looking for. Although this just so happens to be a coincidence that it's the same color, same make and model. Dent just so happens to be on the same exact side. The only difference is that dent is a little bit smaller than the dent that's on the vehicle that they're looking for. But they still asked Gabriel to come down to the station for some questioning. So Gabriel does agree to it. Gabriel comes down to the station, and they start asking Gabriel, hey, did you lend your car out to anybody? And Gabriel's like, no. So they asked Gabriel, where were you on the night of August 25th? Gabriel says, I was at work. And after work, I came home. So the police asks him, well, is there anyone that can verify that? And he's like, no, I live by myself. So because everything seemed to check out, his alibi checked out, the vehicle, everything checked out, they let Gabriel go. And they just document that as a weird coincidence that happened, which that is kind of weird. Like, same exact car, make, model, color, and it just happens to have the same exact dent on the same exact side, on the same exact door. So that's just what it is. So at this point, the police is not giving up, but they're like, it has to come to a halt. The only thing that they can do at this point is just wait on the subpoenaed records from Torrance's phone. So at this point, the detectives are ready to go home, and as they're going home, one detective just so happens to be at a red light. And at this red light, he just so happens to look to his left. Everything is to the left in this video. He just so happens to look to his left, and he notices that the same exact make, model, color, and dent of the vehicle is at the stoplight right next to him. There's a female driving the vehicle, and there is a black man on the passenger side. So at this point, the detective, he dispatches back up, and he follows the vehicle to a business parking lot. And when he follows the vehicle to the parking lot, they both get arrested. The woman, she waited at the scene for a little bit longer for her car to be impounded. And the other suspect, which is the male, he goes in for questioning. Now, when he goes in for questioning, they ask him his name, and he goes, my name is John. Like, what is it that you want? He's very defensive. My name is John. And, they begin to ask him, do you know who Torrance is? No, I don't know who Torrance is. Why? Why does this matter? And they want to know, well, did you murder anyone? No, I didn't murder anyone. What does this have to do with me? So then they ask him, well, where were you on the night of August 25th? He tells them, I don't know. Not only does he say, I don't know, he says, I don't know. I swear to God, I could put that on my mama. I'll take a lie detector test. Well, Mr. John, your wish has been granted because the detective that is questioning him just so happens to be a certified polygraph examiner. So he got his wish. So he takes that test and he failed. Like, he failed miserably. See, Mr. John was thinking, like many other suspects do, was thinking that he can say, I'll take a lie detector test. And when you say that, usually they'll let you go, they'll schedule it, and you'll just have to come back and do it, but you'll never come back. They never come back. But not today. That's not how that's going. So because he failed, he decides to stop talking. So they have no other choice but to let John go. They have nothing to hold him on, and he's not talking. So at this point, there's nothing that they can do. They just have to continue waiting. And sometimes it can take days and weeks to get the subpoenaed record back in. So after they send John home, the next day, they finally get in Torrance's cell phone records. They finally get those in. And when it comes in, a whole list of Torrance's text messages is right there in their face. And they just so happen to see that before all communication from from Torrance ceased, the last message was someone saying to him, hey, I'm outside. And then everything ceased. So this is when the detectives decide to continue looking through through all those records. And when they look through the records, they just so happen to stumble across a voicemail. And this particular voicemail for this number is a probation officer calling for his whatever they're called. I don't, they're inmates or whatever. They're calling for him and they're just, asking him questions and left his name and number. So at this point, the police and the detectives, they call the probation officer and they're trying to get information regarding who he was talking about. So the probation officer says, oh yeah, this is my inmate's number or whatever. And he says, well, so they're thinking that the police is thinking maybe it has to be John because they think John is the suspect, remember? But he didn't tell too much, but because he failed that lie detector test, they have a feeling that this is John's phone. So the police asks the police, well, is this John's phone? John Henderson Houston, and the PO was like, no, this isn't John's phone. It's his brother's phone. His brother's name is Jonathan Henderson Houston. So at this point, the detectives and the police is like, so there's two of them, like they're brothers, they're blood brothers. And he says, yes. He says that John Henderson Houston is 4 years older than Jonathan Henderson Houston. So this is when the police was like, okay, well, we need to go and question Jonathan. Jonathan is going to know something. If he doesn't know something, he is the person that committed the crime. So they go and they find Jonathan and they begin to question Jonathan. And they ask Jonathan, where were you on the night of August 25th of 2015? And Jonathan is playing dumb. Jonathan, like, I don't know where I was. So the police decide to call his bluff with the I don't know and says, well, we know where you were. Not only do we know where you were, we have some evidence on you. So they begin to show him some evidence. And this is when Jonathan says, you know what? You're right. I I killed him. Not only did I kill him, I did other things, but I'm not saying anything. But I want to let you guys know that my brother has nothing to do with the murder. My brother didn't do anything. So the police is like, well, can you tell us what happened? He was just like, oh, nothing happened. I murdered him. So at this point, the police needs a confession. So what they decide to do, they decide to use a certain technique to get him to admit what happened because they need a full confession and they want a motive of what happened. So they lay out some more evidence, and Jonathan is like, "Listen, okay, I'll talk, but I'm not gonna tell you about who helped me. I'm just not doing it." So Jonathan is like, "Yeah, I murdered him and I left." Still, again, he's saying the same exact thing, but the police is not having it. So the police decides to say, "Well, Jonathan, how tall are you? This sounds like self-defense anyway. Now that I look at the records, I think this is self-defense." So Jonathan is like, what are you talking about? The detectives tell him, well, Jonathan, like, how tall are you? Jonathan's like, I'm 5'10". So the detective said, well, Torrance is 6'10", 450 pounds. There's no way that this isn't self-defense. Like, you need to tell us what happened so that we can document this as self-defense. So Jonathan, he falls for it. And this is when he goes spilling the beans, but he is adamant about his brother not knowing anything about it and him not giving up the two accomplices that he was with. But he begins to tell detectives that on the night of August 25th, he called Torrance over. Well, he called Torrance and telling Torrance that he needed some money, and Torrance agreed for him to come over. And when he came over, he gave them some money. The police isn't buying that part. So the detectives asked Jonathan, like, why is he giving you money? And he was like, well, because I needed it. And the detective's like, well, you're trying to tell me he just gave you money? And he says, no, I worked for it. So he's trying to beat around the bush, and the detective's like, Jonathan, it's not making sense. We can't help you with self-defense if you're not telling us what happened. So Jonathan says, listen, he just gave me the money and something happened and I killed him. The detective is sitting up here like, Jonathan, let me tell you about these messages. According to these messages, is this your number? Jonathan agrees that this is his number. So the detective says, well, Jonathan, are you gay? Jonathan says, no, I'm not gay and I'm far from it. Don't play with me. Don't accuse me of nothing like that. So at this point, the police is like, Jonathan, this is the text message that you sent to Torrance, and you said this is your number. So spill the beans. Tell me what's going on. This is when Jonathan begins to say, you know what? Okay, you're right. It was me. No, I'm not gay, but I do give Torrance sexual pleasure, or I perform sexual activity or sexual acts on Torrance for money, but I'm not gay. So the police says, well, Jonathan, you have to tell us what happened. This sounds like self-defense, but you're not telling us nothing. Right now, it sounds like murder. So once Jonathan heard that, Jonathan says, listen, okay, let me tell you. So Tuesday, what happened was I called him over. Well, I called him and seeing if I could come over, and he agreed. When I come over, Jonathan, Torrance and I, we had sex, and once we were done, he didn't give me my money. I was upset because I really needed my money. I don't have a job. I really needed my money. Not only did he owe me that money, he owed me money from weeks ago, days ago, months ago, and he always tells me he doesn't have money, and I'm always performing sexual activity on him, and I don't like doing it. And however, whatever. He says that that particular day, he was getting ready to leave after the argument happened about Torrance paying him his money. And when he was about to go, he says that Torrance pushed him against the sink and held all his body weight on him. So he got very, very, very scared. He just so happened to look over and see a knife in the sink, and he stabbed Torrance in the back of the head. And that was that. And he said that he left. So the police is like, so did you take his things out of his house because his things are gone? He was like, yeah, I did it because I was scared, and I just took his stuff to make it look like a robbery. Like, I was scared. I didn't know what to do. So the police asked, well, did you try to kill him? He says, no, I didn't try to kill him. He says, I think that the blade of the knife must have hit a major artery, because I didn't try to kill him. But as soon as I did it, blood just started gushing everywhere. So at this point, the detectives basically got their full confession, but they don't think that's what happened, according to what Jonathan says. They think that Jonathan basically called Torrance over. Yes, he wanted money, needed money. And it's a possibility Torrance did owe him money, but they believe Jonathan was just being greedy and only wanted money, and also wanted to rob Torrance. So he called him over, acted like he was going to have sex with him, and only sex and just have a good time, and was going to, after that, he was going to kill him. Well, he killed him and took his money and took his TV and trashed the house and ransacked everything to make it look like a murder. And the police did ask, well, how did you get your brother's car? And this is when he says, well, that night, while my brother and his wife was sleeping, I stole the car keys, I stole the car, and I drove around the neighborhood just recruiting 2 other people to help me with my plan. So at this point, Jonathan is arrested, and about a month later, he goes to court, and when he goes on court, he refuses to go to trial because of all of the evidence. And not only because of the evidence, it will be coming out that Jonathan, I guess you would say, was on the DL. He didn't want anybody to know that he was having sex with the man, or oral sex with the man, and sexual activity, just involved with the man overall, or part of the LGBTQ community. He didn't want his family and friends to know that. So he opted to take a plea deal. The family did not agree with the plea deal, but they were okay with it because that spared them from listening to the gruesome details of what happened. So when he takes the plea deal, unfortunately, Jonathan Henderson Houston only got 15 years of a prison sentence. And as far as I know, it looks like he can be eligible for parole as far as the game time and everything like that. Now, his family and friends, they're very distraught. The community is very distraught from this because Torrance, or ms.Whoochie, was a local celebrity. Like, everybody loved ms.Whoochie and Torrance Cheeves, and he loved everybody. He was an amazing soul. He loved being around everybody. He loved his job. He loved helping everybody. So the community was pretty much distraught. So, but thank you guys for listening to my story. This is my very first video, so let me know down in the comments how I did. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and share the video. And I'll see you guys in a couple more days with another video. Bye!